Welcome back to Open Line. We are talking about the developments in Iran tonight, and we invite you to call in, ask questions of Thomas Schwartz, professor at Vanderbilt University of both history and political science. The phones have been ringing, and we appreciate that. Professor, you just told me that you have some students in your classes that just started this week, by the way, from Iran.
That's
and
right.
I wonder if you've had any feedback from them about things that are happening.
They've been very, very worried about events there, and certainly one of them actually emailed me to say how concerned and worried that there would be some sort of reaction here against him because he's Iranian. And I tried to reassure him that I think most Americans can separate that, but you know, there are uglier things sometimes that happen when people hear that sort of thing. I hope that's not the case. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go back to the phone lines. James, thank you for your patience over that commercial break. What's your comment or question tonight?
You know, it's more troubling than anything is to hear the mainstream media and the Democrats actually kind of it's like they're praising this Soleimani guy. That, can you imagine being a relative or somebody that's missing a leg or an arm for his roadside bombs that have, you know, maimed and killed, you know, thousands of people? And just to hear the Democrats just praising somebody like that is just disgusting. And not just the Democrats, the mainstream media is just as guilty as well. And it just seems like, you know, every time something, you know, where we try to use a little bit of peace through strength, they were screaming, oh, there's going to be a war with North Korea. Oh, there's going to be a war with Syria. Oh, there's going to be a major war with Iraq. It's just, or Iran, excuse me. It just, the pundits, you know, the Democrat leadership, the mainstream media, it's like they have completely lost their minds. It just baffles us. And I'm not, trust me, if you go look at Twitter, the majority of Americans are thinking the same thing I am. These people have lost their minds. I mean, it just baffles me, and I'll just hang up and listen to your comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I try not to look at Twitter on these issues.
Yes, I can understand that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Americans are divided, as we are on most issues these days.
Yep.
And as someone who has studied this from decades and years, has this always been the issue with Iran, or is it more so now than ever?
Iran has been an interesting case because Iran sort of burst into the public imagination 40 years ago during the hostage crisis, and feelings were extraordinarily intense during that period. President Carter tried to manage it, but the Iranians were deliberately provoking the United States, burning flags, parading the hostages. Iran is a country that many Americans on both sides of the political spectrum have difficulty with the government there. President Obama, what has happened in recent years is, of course, that the two parties have taken different approaches to Iran. The Republicans have been tougher. President Obama decided he wanted to recalibrate policy and move away from sort of the Saudi connection and the Sunni connection and try to balance by opening to Iran with the nuclear deal. President Trump rejected the nuclear deal and threw it out. So this is one of those cases in which a country has become a political football, in a sense, between the parties, that there is a strong partisan division between the two parties on it.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I do want to bring everybody up to speed on the developments of just today, where we are seeing some of that partisan politics definitely play out up on Capitol Hill. Take a look. This is Skylar Henry reporting.
The current resolution is adopted.
The Democratic-controlled House has passed a resolution aimed at blocking President Trump from taking military action against Iran on his own.
The Constitution of the United States calls for there to be cooperation.
Mr. President, obey the law. Obey the Constitution of the United States of America.
The showdown came a week after the president authorized a U.S. strike killing Iran's top military commander.
We did it because they were looking to blow up our embassy. We also did it for other reasons that were very obvious.
Tensions between Washington and Tehran escalated this week after Iran attacked 2 bases in Iraq where U.S. and coalition troops are stationed.
This resolution plays politics with national security.
How can you sit here and try to apologize for the things that he did by saying taking him out was wrong? This world is a safer place with Soleimani gone.
Democrats continue to question the administration's justification for the strike against Iran's general after Wednesday's classified briefings.
I had calls from numerous senators and numerous congressmen and women saying it was the greatest presentation they've ever had.
Republican Senator Mike Lee says he'll support a separate resolution in the Senate aimed at limiting President Trump's ability to take military action against Iran.
There's naturally some tension between where the war power ends and the commander-in-chief power begins.
For now, President Trump only plans to hit Iran with additional sanctions, not strikes. But a top Iranian military official has suggested harsher revenge against the U.S. may be on the way. Skyler Henry, CBS News, the White House.
So that brings you up to speed on the very latest developments, that vote coming late today. What do you think will be the end game of this vote?
Well, I think the Democrats have laid down a marker. They want the president to come for authorization if there's further military action against Iran. It's not going to have, it has no legal binding on the president. He'll still have it. It is in a way setting up a political debate that may or may not have an impact on the election, in the sense that if the crisis continues, if we have further military action, it could be one of the key issues that the Democrats raised during the presidential campaign.
Let's talk about sanctions. The president said that's the route that he wants to go next. How harshly are those felt, and what can he do?
Well, he can make it more and more difficult for third-party countries to trade with Iran. He's trying to cut off access. The Iranians have developed still have various trade relationships with Western Europe. The president's sanctions could try and target those European companies and others that are engaging in trade with Iran. It's complicated because the Iranians are trying to find other means, and they have developed, for example, recently more relationships with China and Russia. Trump can try to have some sanctions even there. Iran is under heavy sanctions now. I'm not quite sure how much more it can be imposed on it. These have had a significant effect on the Iranian economy, a decline of some 9% or something in the Iranian GNP this past year. So there have been serious consequences from it, but the Iranians are also, most of this tends to hit the people, not the government. The government can insulate itself, and so it's questionable how much impact it'll have.
Whether you're watching social media or you're watching one of the many pundits that you can find on TV these days, people keep throwing out World War III, World War III. Are we headed in that direction, do you think?
I don't think we're headed toward any global type of conflict. What we're headed for probably, or what we might be headed for, is continuing violence within the Middle East and this ongoing low-level Cold War between Iran and the United States and its allies in the Middle East. This has been going on for a long time. It's gotten particularly intense in the last 3 years. The Obama period did see a diminution of that, even though the Iranians continued to exercise their attempt to expand their influence in Lebanon and then Syria in particular. So I think we might see continuing violence in the Middle East.
All right, let's go to Lucy on the line. Lucy, you've hung in there with me for several minutes now, so thank you. Go ahead. What's your comment tonight?
Hey, y'all. Well, I've got a couple of comments.
Okay.
First, as far as the mainstream media goes, that's what I watch. I'm not on the internet. There's enough brainwashing going on in the local coffee shops. I don't need to get stormed by something that's not even real journalism. I watch you guys, the mainstream media, because you guys practice journalism to the best of your ability, which brings me to whatever that was today with the president in his commander-in-chief costume with all those props behind him. It looks like something out of North Korea, but I suppose he's calling that a press conference. And in that thing today, he mentioned that the plane being shot down, the expression on his face said it might have been an accident. Here's my question. When they shot off the two SAMs, the plane shoot out an IFF, and from what I understand, I thought globally we've gone to GPS to supply that signal to people on the ground, and that is controlled through satellite. And who launched the satellite and who developed GPS? The United States. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not trying to to clear the Iranians of anything. But, you know, when I think about the president telling us not to trust our intelligence, to trust Putin, you think I'm going to believe anything that the president says now? Because he's screamed this story so many times. He's got people stressed out screaming World War III because they think he's like King George III and he's out of control. So when you look at what he's saying, and when you look at stuff like yellow cake uranium, they dismissed that, and that brought us into Iraq. And when you look at Pan Am 103, and when BP Oil got that guy out of prison and sent back to Libya so they could get the oil contract down there in the Mediterranean, people should wonder. And on Pan Am 103, there were CIA agents and people from our United States Army and other military personnel. So people need to quit their crazy political supporting stuff, and they better look at what's at stake here, and that's the freedom of this country. And when you don't have a press conference to let the people know what's really going on, and you're turning it into some little frat party, you've got a problem. It looks like more and more like North Korea every day here in this country. So that's all I want to say. Y'all have a good one.
All right, Lucy, thank you so very much. This Ukrainian plane, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit. Both the president and the prime minister of Canada addressed it today, citing basically the same intelligence information, that it likely was shot down by mistake by Iran. Do you think Iran will ever own up to that?
I think they might have to. The evidence might be so overwhelming. They may make a case that they were thinking that the United States was attacking, or that the United States may have actually deceptively, in some manner, deceived them into thinking that, and that's why they fired it. I mean, we have we shot down an Iranian passenger jet when we thought it was attacking us in 1988. An American naval ship shot down an Iranian passenger jet. Accidents like this do happen. The Iranians, this would be an expensive thing, because if the Iranians do own up, they will have compensation. But something tells me they'll eventually may have to. They may try to deflect blame, but they may have to.
I wonder what is the view of the average Iranian in Iran of America.
That's very, very hard to say. I think the interesting thing is that I've not been to Iran, but from friends who have been to Iran, at various times, Iran seemed like the most pro-American country in the region, partly because people were upset with their government, and because we were seen as opposed to their government. A lot of ordinary Iranians favored the United States. Now, that obviously has not always been the case. There was the Iranian Revolution against the Shah, who was a close American ally. This killing may also have had the effect of changing people's minds. It's not easy to talk about the average view. Iranians are as divided as we are. There are Iranians who've been very active against the government, who might have actually welcomed something like this, but they have to be very quiet in this circumstance. It is a divided country, and we have seen it erupt in demonstrations against the government in 2009 and then very recently. So it is hard to say what the average person there thinks. They're probably, as I say, they're probably as divided as Americans on many of these issues.
Just days before Soleimani was killed, we were reporting about the attack on the U.S. Embassy in Iraq, and I remember as I was reading the scripts, and I thought, okay, the president is saying that Iran is, basically fueling this swell of Iraqis attacking the embassy. And I thought, well, gosh, how is this all working? What is this true, and how is this working? Did that surprise you at all, or
no,
did you think this was par for the course?
What you have to understand is that Iran has gained immense influence in Iraq. Iranians and the majority of Iraqis do share the same Shiite faith, and there is this degree of cooperation that has come into existence between a large faction of Iraq and with Iranians, and the Iranians have exercised a great deal of influence within the country. One of the things, the irony of deposing Saddam Hussein is we deposed a Sunni leader who had kept the Shiites in Iraq under terrible repression, and the result has been to bring this alliance of types back into play. Now, many Iraqis also resented what they saw as excessive Iranian influence, and there were demonstrations against that influence. But Iraq is also a very divided country between Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds, and in this sense, there is the Iranian influence within Iraq was quite heavy, and the fact that Soleimani felt that he could visit there, land at their airport, meet with his collaborators, and nothing would happen, it was part of this, that the relationship was that close. So in a way, no, it didn't surprise me at all that the Iranians might have been encouraging the Iraqis to go after the American embassy, to try to get the Americans out of Iraq, because we're there in part more because of the Kurds and the Sunni population there than we are because of the Iraqi Shiites.
All right, we have to take another quick break. We will do that. If you want to go ahead and get your call on the line, let's do that now. 615-737-PLUS is the number to call. You can do that during the break, and we'll get back to this discussion in just a few minutes.